Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Death Stranding. I played it on the PS4 because, you know, PS4 exclusivity. So let's start with the story, which I honestly don't even know how to begin with this story because you need like an encyclopedia and like a fucking dictionary of sci-fi jargon to get your head around it. You play as Sam, we'll call him Sam because last names seem to be kind of weird and not necessarily sensical. I say that because they tend to be tied to like jobs and other stuff, or they just tend to not have last names. And Sam is a porter, meaning he hauls physical goods from one place to another. He is a freelance one, whereas most others are tied to some kind of company or another in this time. Not that there are a lot of companies at this point, because, you know, shit went wrong and weird things are going on. Like, if people die, they create what is called a void out, which is basically a nuclear blast. There's some weird, crazy, undead shit. It's nuts. It's very nuts. It's very Kojima. But Sam is brought to the president of what remains of the United States and is basically tasked with trying to reconnect all the people of the US. And that is kind of the point of the game. It does hold a lot of, like, Hideo Kojima's ideas being thrust into it very deeply, and they are at the core of it. And I gotta say, I really enjoy the storytelling of this game. It is very weird and Kojima, but I like the story, and it really has kept me going through this game. I would love to be able to go into more depth of what's going on. There are warring factions, there are companies that are tied to the government, there's all sorts of stuff going on, and like I said, it's very Kojima. As for the audio in this game, I love the audio in this game. I really like the sound effects in this world. I think they're top notch and they really bring you in. But beyond that, I love the music. I wish they would play more of it when you're traveling. I like the soundtrack of the game. The songs just really fit well with the world, and when you're traveling across the world and one of these songs just kicks in, you're like, oh man, there's something very zen about it. But for a game chocked full of celebrities, the voiceover work is phenomenal. I mean, the way I phrased that, you probably thought I was going to say, oh shit, but no, the voiceover work is fantastic. Everybody does a really good job. You have the likes of Norman Reedus, Lea Seydoux, Troy Baker's in there. They're just some really big names, and they all put a lot of work into it. Overall, the audio in this game is phenomenal. It really is impressive. It's a great blend of sound effects, music, and voiceover. Now, as for the gameplay mechanics, this is where the game gets weird and probably debatable. It's third person, very much not an action game. There are times where there is action, but that's very far from the focus of this game. But beyond that, it's literally about traveling. It's about that more so than any of the action. Which that could be a huge turnoff for a lot of people because you spend a lot of time just loading shit onto your back and walking from place to place. You do get a vehicle eventually, but using that in certain areas is not really doable. It's very difficult. It's actually easier to walk through certain areas than it is to ride a vehicle through them. And when the action does go down, it's... I say that because, well, the tutorials don't do a good job of explaining what you need to do at first, because the enemies are invisible until they're within, like, I don't know, 10 yards of you. And when they're that close, unless you're playing just right, you're kind of fucked. And the tutorials don't do a great job of explaining that, and it made points in the game agonizingly frustrating. Once I figured out how to deal with the enemies, the BTs, I enjoyed it a lot more, but it takes a bit. And it's not as satisfying as one of those like hardcore get good games. It's just kind of frustrating. One of the things that is very frustrating when you run into the BTs is you have these grenades, and that's really one of the easiest ways to kill them. But the problem is, it doesn't work well. You get a little arch seeing where the grenade will go, and you can line it up so that it will hit the BT dead on, and for some reason it won't hit them at all. The trajectory of the grenades does not always match the trajectory you are shown. There are times where it should land and explode in one area, and it lands like 30 feet past that, doing you absolutely no good. Or where you're aimed directly at a BT, it should, and it then goes way the hell past them, like 40 feet. Happened to me multiple times, wasted a lot of the grenades. It was really frustrating. But there are some other neat things in this game. It actually has an always online feature. Not that you have to play online, but it is beneficial to you. As a courier, essentially the currency you use is likes, which I kind of hate, but it makes sense that the people you are transporting things to, they're happy with you, and other couriers are happy with you. And those other couriers can be other players. They're not in your world, but they can do things that will affect your world. Like, I specifically built roads that other people used because roads are an easier way to get around. And that gained me likes, which benefited me in the long run. There is also a fast travel system, and I like the way they implemented that because it's very Kojima in that it has a story reason for being there. It's very clear that this has all the hallmarks of a pet project, and it was executed with all the passion of a pet project. It's just kind of a weird game and a kind of weird amalgamation of different gameplay mechanics, and I could see how it'd be a turnoff for some people. I think what they did with the gameplay is interesting, and I think there are some busted elements, but I think it does work overall. As for the controls, I didn't really have any major problems with the controls. I really like the weighty feel of them. Controlling Sam does not feel floaty. That's the easiest way I can put it because, I mean, he can load up with a crap ton of stuff, and the heavier load you are carrying, the harder he is to steer, the harder he is to stop. That's true of the vehicles as well, and I thought that was a really cool element to the control scheme. Not control scheme, but controls. I also will say, I like the control scheme. I think it works well. I think it's well mapped. Overall, I think the controls work, and I think they were executed well. Then there's the graphics and visuals, and this is a gorgeous game. Just a truly astounding game. All the character models are so impressive. The amount of detail put into them is just amazing. But beyond that, it has just so much detail in the world, and like the world kind of changes with the mythos of the game, and it's really cool and impressive the way that they did all of that. It definitely has some weird pointless sci-fi shit though, but that's very Kojima, and it looks cool, so I guess that's all that matters for the visuals. It's really an interesting combination of times. It's gray and gritty and kind of boring looking, but man, there are times when you're traveling across the land that it's just stunning. It's bright and colorful, and the grass is just as green as it can be. The rocks look beautiful. It's really impressive. There's also actually an impressive amount of detail in it, like not just the design and stuff, but I walked through an area and then I walked back through later, and this was like an hour of gameplay later, and my boot prints were still there. That doesn't always happen, but it is a really cool way of doing things. I just think overall it's a gorgeous game. So to wrap this up, this is such an interesting game. The gameplay mechanics are such a weird amalgamation, and there are things that don't work as well as I would like, and it can be kind of boring at times and frustrating. That being said though, the story was so interesting that it kept pulling me forward through even the things that I wasn't sure that I enjoyed. It pulled me through the things that I found frustrating. It was an amazing story. The problem is I don't know how to recommend this game, yay or nay, because it is such an odd game, but I've got to say I do enjoy it overall, and I really like the story, and in a lot of ways it is a true walking simulator now that I think about it. That being said, I really enjoy it overall, so I am going to recommend it. At first, when I started playing, I wasn't sure that I was going to give it a recommend, because, like I said, the tutorials suck, and they can leave you in a kind of screwed position at times, but once you get the hang of it, there is more to it than you might expect, and the story is really engrossing. So yeah, I'm gonna recommend it if you're looking for a new and unique experience. If you're looking for something that's just pure action, guns blazing kind of shit, no, this is absolutely not a game for you. If you're looking for a spiritual sequel to a Metal Gear Solid game, then this is not a game for you. If you're looking for a really unique game with an interesting storytelling method, told by an interesting storyteller, then this would be a game that you would want to play. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me, Hideo Kojima fan or not? I mean, I definitely am. I've been playing Metal Gear for years. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.